The bonanza lure of Michigan's green gold, white pine, mesmerized many eastern and Michigan capitalists in the mid-19th century. Included was Gideon O. Whittemore of Pontiac, who deserted a comfortable profession to found a town, Tawas City, in 1853-1854, and a county, Iosco, in 1857. Sharing the family's investment in the lumbering game on Tawas Bay was Whittemore's wife Harriet, who chose to remain in Oakland County. The Whittemores, Gideon and his sons James and Charles, explored the Ottawas Bay region, as it was then called, in 1853 and purchased 5,300 acres of land at $1.25 per acre, with a mile of frontage on the bay. This sawmill was completed in 1854. Launching this historic enterprise was complicated and a daunting experience for the Whittemores, as explained by James in his 1866 diary, as reproduced here. The Whittemores arrived here by steamboat, unloaded mill equipment on small rafts, and lightered everything to shore. There were no harbor facilities. This entire region was cut off from the rest of the world for 5 months of the year, due to winter, and everything, all supplies, including lumber to build a mill and even hay to feed the horses and oxen, had to be shipped here by boat. The Whittemores brought a small crew of men to work in their pineries along Dead Creek and the Tawas River, including such family names as Harris and Rollin. This three-master and two-master schooners like the Ontario shown here transported finished lumber to market down the lakes as far as Albany, New York. The Whittemore dock at the foot of Matthew Street was the only shore facility on the bay. This was Tawas City around 1870. Dan Dunn Saloon is on the right, and Moe's Miner's Boot Shop is at the left. Note that there are no railroad tracks on the north side of the river. This was Tawas City around 1873. The building at left is a second hotel owned by Isaiah Curry, the first having burned in 1869. The men are standing in front of the saloon doorway. This view was snapped from the cupola of the cart house, showing twin smokestacks of the mill, which showered sparks on adjoining buildings and raised buildings in the vicinity for at least 4 times. C.D. Hale was the next lumberman to locate on Ottawas Bay, building his mill on the east side of the Tawas River mouth and purchasing extensive pine lands along the Outawas River. Hale promoted construction of and invested heavily in a narrow-gauge railroad and lost his shirt in that expensive operation. C.H. Prescott of Bay City was the first president of the railroad and picked up the pieces. He extended the line to East Tawas. Prescott also purchased this mill constructed in 1873, east of today's Tawas City Park. The Reverend Prescott used a clever ruse to extend his tracks to East Tawas on city streets, loading most of the townsfolk on his logging train for a gospel picnic at the end of the line. The Prescotts constructed this brick store at the southwest corner of First Street, which stands today as the handsome Liberty Building. C.H.'s son, George Allen Prescott, Michigan Secretary of State, constructed this beautiful mansion for his family in 1905. It was raised in the 1970s for a parking lot at the Kroger store, now Neiman's Market. The next 4 photographs show some typical homes in Tawas City constructed during the White Pine era. This home was remodeled by Dr. Case and later became the Barnes Hotel. And this is the residence of Sheriff Peter Sheen. Orville Leslie moved it to a new location and sided it with brick. Snapped in 1907, that is an arc lamp at the intersection of Lake and Matthews. Friedman's Stores at left. This view of Lake Street looks east. That's Corrigan Saloon at left. This horse and wagon is stopped in front of Mike Murphy's Saloon. The wagon is filled with empty beer barrels and Stroh's beer cases. Marzinski's Grocery is at left. Postmaster W.B. Kelly stands in front of his office. The building was raised in 2008. Tawas City adopted local options several times, closing saloons, but these fellows had no trouble winning their whistles. This is a business district on the north side of the river. From right is the James Hamilton Store, Book's Meat Market, and the O'Brien House. The site is now occupied by the fire station. Felix Stepansky, clerk, is shown in one aisle at the Hamilton Store. This neat little building first served as Tawas Township Hall, then the Village and City Hall. It housed the fire department and the bell-worn citizens of a fire. It was located at the northeast corner of Matthews Street Bridge. Tawas City is the seat of Iosco County government, and this courthouse was constructed in 1869. The jail at Wright was constructed in the 1880s. Here is a tinted postcard view of the courthouse and jail. The Methodists constructed this church in Tawas City in 1871. It is now the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Originally the Congregational Church built in the 1870s, it is now the Latter-day Saints Church. The Baptist Church, financed by the Reverend C.H. Prescott, still stands today. The tall spire of Zion Lutheran Church was long a landmark for Saginaw Bay sailors. It has been renovated today in its original beauty. The parsonage, school, and church of Zion Lutheran is shown here. Zion Church originated on Plank Road, across from its cemetery. This is the Emmanuel Lutheran Church, constructed in the late 1870s. The beautiful little edifice has been replaced with a new church school complex on North Street. Pupils attending Emmanuel Lutheran School in the early 1900s pose in front of the school. The Tawas City Public School was constructed in 1891 to replace one destroyed by fire. It served 3 generations of students until 1957. These boys won the county's baseball championship in 1913, and the trophy and banner were displayed in the study hall through the 1940s. These Tawas City girls won the state basketball championship in 1922. The girl at center front is the mother of retired Judge J. Richard Ernst. This Tawas City High School baseball team and coaches are posed in a locomotive in the Alabaster Quarry, following a game with the White City Nine. Commercial fishing was the region's first industry, beginning in the 1840s. This is the Trudell Fishery Net House in Tawas City during the 1920-1930 era. A pound net is being lifted with a large catch of herring. Delbert Trudell is at left. Commercial fishermen harvested ice in Tawas Bay during winter to be used in shipment of fresh fish to downstate and eastern markets. Following on the heels of the lumbermen were farmers, and the first generation had the huge job of removing several million stumps. The practical farmers fenced their fields with the stumps. This neat farmhouse probably was constructed with lumber from white pine trees removed from the property. Peas were an important crop sown by farmers before stumps were removed. Burley Wilson's elevator, located north of 1st Street, Court Street intersection, was an important buyer for the farm trade. Iosco County Fairgrounds was originally located between the Tawases, extending from the Bayshore back north to Franklin Street. It had a fine harness racing track. The blacksmith provided the additional service of farrier, keeping horses shod. The Tawas Butter Company, located at the southwest corner of Lake and Matthew Streets, originally the location of the Whittemore mill, provided an important outlet for small dairy farmers in Tawas and adjoining townships. That's Charles Maller at the reins of the team and wagon, with a shipment of butter bound for Detroit. Tawas City was proud of the ornamental trees lining Lake, Whittemore, and several other streets in the community. This view looks west from River Street. There was no need for snowplows during the early days, as the horse and cutter could furnish its own plowing. This view is near the US 23 M55 intersection of today. Ice boating was a popular winter sport on Tawas Bay. Ice conditions were more dependable in the early 1900s than today. Tawas City's 500 block between Matthew Street and Whittemore Street was visited by wipeout fires 4 times before this hand pumper fire apparatus was purchased. A 5th fire in 1919 demolished 5 stores before Ben Sawyer's new concrete block building stopped the blaze before it reached the Iosco Hotel. This view shows the fire demolition from Matthew Street east. The City Council purchased 2 Model T Ford trucks from Henry Kane, but the pumper at rear proved ineffective, and Tawas Butter Company west of Matthew Street was destroyed by fire. That fire resulted in a change of mayors, and this American LaFrance pumper, operated here by George Gates, served until 1939. The only flood in Tawas City's history occurred in May 1912, when a deluge of rain pushed Dead Creek over its banks and the watercourse east on Matthew Street. This is the residence of Mike Murphy, surrounded by water flowing into the Tawas River. The little house still stands on Matthew Street. Several residents watch the high water in Dead Creek, completely engulfing this house at the southwest corner of Matthews and 6th Avenue. This dandy and his fancy horse and rig, rented from Ben Sawyer's livery, stands in front of Mike Murphy's saloon. Across the street is Barney Long's saloon, bowling alley, and pool hall. Barney stands at the bar, and Mrs. Long is at right. This was a Sawyer pool hall across the street. Ben Sawyer kept things under control, and he once floored a drunk with a pool cue between the eyes. Martin Wugazer, local pharmacist, shows off a pet bear in front of his Red Cross pharmacy. This postcard view is captioned, "We work for a living." That's Ab Mallon at left. They pose for August Brown in his studio. The 2 men, along with 100 or so other Tawas residents, rode their wheels daily to the D&M car shops between the towns. Colin Sawyer and Audley Redhead are sunning themselves on some logs along the bayshore. The Tawas Bay shoreline is shown with the Prescott Boathouse surrounded by water. This young Tawasidian is showing the latest in beach and swimwear in the early 1900s. Note the headgear, bloomers, and black socks. Jim Leslie, just to the left of the front wheel, brought this steam traction engine to Tawas City to mill lumber for Sheriff Collie Johnson. The heavy tractor broke through the Matthew Street Bridge. This is the original wooden bridge crossing Tawas River on Whittemore Street. The Tawas River is near the top of its banks, looking downstream from Whittemore Street. Northeast Michigan lost practically an entire generation of its young people to the automobile industry after 1900. These young men were working at the Jackson Auto Plant at Flint. Earning up to $5 a day in the auto plants, later $10, the young Tawas men came home in style, like this young auto worker with a 1920-ish Buick touring car. The home folks still had Tawas Bay for a front door, but that trail heading east was still unpaved. Tawas City residents were proud of the oak and maple trees lining their streets. The trees lining Lake Street extended partway through the block from Whittemore to Matthews Street. The concrete block building is Henry Kane's new Ford garage. The street is still paved with sand and sawdust. This is the Iosca Hotel. It was a fixture on Lake Street into the 21st century. L.H. Braddock, retired manager of the Prescott Hardware, operated his farm implement store in the old Barney Long building in the 1930s. One of the great stories of the 1930s was a best-kept secret. The days of the silent movies ended in the Tawases when Doug Ferguson announced his Movietone Talking Pictures in the State Theater. Tawas City made a giant leap forward in municipal services in 1934 with a new sanitary sewer system. Mayor J.A. Brugger, center-right, accepted keys for the new disposal plant with members of the city council looking on. 25 years later, former Mayor J.A. Brugger burned the bonds in this ceremony. Lake Street is shown in the 1930s, still with metal hitching posts for horses. This view was snapped in the late 1930s and shows Bremen's Ice Cream Parlor, Ferguson's Market, Bing Hardware, Sawyer's Restaurant. Tawas City merchants sponsored the Tawas Perch Festival starting in 1937. Queen's candidates from left included Norma Musoff, Doris Brugger, Janet Kaiser, Phyllis Bigelow, and Lucille DeParty. Harold Maller, an avid Tawas City sportsman, is shown with back to camera aboard his beautiful sailboat Yucatan. Billy Mallon is on the stern. It is 1940, and Harold Maller and Father Charles are operating their new bowling alley built in 1939. There was a complete detour around Tawas City during reconstruction of US 23. Work on the first two lanes of a 4-lane highway through the Tawases is shown in front of C.O. McLean's store. The 4 lanes have been completed, and the view looks east from Orville Leslie & Sons Ford Sales, with St. Joseph's School at left. Here, we're looking southwest from Leslie's Ford Garage. This view looks west towards Brugger's new store constructed in 1940 and today's Liberty Building, where Consumers Power Company had an office and appliance store. In 1940, Ford Motor Company had an economy run with its new Mercury. Among those on hand to verify gas mileage were Sergeant Hiram Grimison, Editor P.N. Thornton, Mayor Lyman McAuliffe of East Tawas, Ben Leslie of the Ford Garage, Mayor John Coyle of Tawas City, and State Police Trooper James McDonald. Orville and Dora Leslie are shown with an early Oldsmobile, which he repaired for Dr. Wakeman early in the 20th century. Ken Barnes of Clare purchased this building in 1940 and remodeled it into a hotel. The new hotel had a snug cocktail lounge with tables and chairs. Barkman's Mill and Lumber Yard was a longtime fixture in Tawas City, managed and owned by Joseph Barkman. 63 years ago, The Forciers kept these kids in line along with the rest of the gang that hung out at Vic and Zell's great restaurant and dance hall in the Bublitz building, starting in 1945. This is a 1946 aerial view looking south over the Tawas City baseball field. The winter of 1946-1947 had one of the worst blizzards in years. These Tawas Herald photos show snow piled in front of Rainbow Service and along Lake Street in front of Lang's Dairy Bar and Book's Market. Dick Fletcher opened his new station in 1946 with Bill Horn as manager. It was located on the site of the old James Robinson, later the Arthur Zeal station. The Barnes Hotel was remodeled in 1946 with this concrete block addition. Fire destroyed the original Barkman Home Outfitters store on First Street during the winter of 1946, and the store was later located across from today's Brugger's Plaza. Milton Barkman, shown here, and Brother Harris managed the business. This wide-angle view shows both sides of the 500 block, ending at far right with the City Hall and Water Tower standpipe. Here are some Tawas Herald front page news photos from the 1940s, 1950s, and 1960s. Circuit Judge Allen Miller and Glenn Long, left, chairman of the Osco County Board of Supervisors, are adjusting a new portrait of retired Judge Herman Denke in the Circuit Court chamber. Postmaster Martin Koziski, left, accepts an American flag from Congressman Alfred Cederberg during dedication of the new post office next to the bowling alley. The Tawas City Elks basketball team carry head coach Mark Defaba off the floor after winning the district tournament. Dredging the Tawas River mouth was a continual process during the 1950s. High water of Lake Huron threatened US 23 near the Tawas Chamber of Commerce office in 1951. Pupils of St. Joseph Catholic School are shown raising the American flag in 1953. County Agricultural Agent Marvin Davenport, left, presents a plaque to Norman Sibley in recognition of his long years as a 4-H club leader. Art Stark, Tawas City carpenter, was a champion roller skater and pool shark in his younger days. Iosco Aranac Regional Library purchased the old Alabaster School for its headquarters. Don Anderson, first president of Tawas Chamber of Commerce, is shown with Bertha Montgomery, office manager. This is a 1949 Perch Festival parade, sponsored by Tawas Chamber of Commerce. Do you remember when school buses were painted red, white, and blue? Here comes Miss Ruth and her dance review. Don Roach was drum major of Tawas City High's marching band. And here comes the East Tawas High School marching band. Footings for the new county building are under construction in 1952, with the old Osco County Courthouse in the background. The Detroit and Mackinac Railway attempted to establish a truck line in 1953, but was prevented to do so as Malvini Truck Line held the franchise. There was a time when league-winning teams at Tawas City Recreation featured the front page. Sheriff Ivan O'Farrell was called out on all kinds of complaints, including a raid on this chicken coop by a pack of dogs. These Tawas City boys made the front page by shooting this coyote. That's Harry Toms at center. Conservation Officer Art Leeds is assisting fish specialist Eddie Parker in transferring a huge rainbow trout from the pond on Pickett Creek into the east branch of the All Gray River. The Reverend Leonard Newman, pastor of Emmanuel Lutheran Church, is shown with members of his Bible class. Head coach Fred Hickman and Mark Defaba, his assistant, are shown at right with the 1954 Tawas Area Braves. Here is St. Joseph's School shortly before it was demolished. This is the first Tawas City High School marching band in 1937, directed by Miss Hoodlaw. The Tawas City High School team won the Huron Shores League Trophy in 1945-1946. The Tawas City High School team won the 1949 District Basketball Tournament. Members of the Tawas Braves are shown with coach Jim Pappenfuss. This is the 1939 championship team of Tawas City Independence. In 1941, the Tawas City baseball team at right hosted the Alabaster Nine at left. This Tawas City team was the Northeast Michigan Championship in 1946. This was the front page of the Tawas Herald with the story of the baseball championship. The 1948 Tawas City baseball team is shown here. World War II was still fresh in mind when, on October 1, 1948, the Tawases played host to 100 disabled veterans from Percy Jones Hospital, Battle Creek. Arrangements for the weekend holiday for the vets was arranged by Iosco Veterans of Foreign Wars Post, Tawas City. Mike Nunn, East Tawas hardware owner, was on hand at Oscoda Air Base to film the veterans when they landed. Various local organizations participated in the festivities, and a banquet was held at Gifford's Grill. Shorty Ketcherside, owner of the Holland Hotel, represented Tawas Chamber of Commerce and was there to greet the visitors, who rode in style in a special D&M train to Tawas. These scenes show the latest in jet aircraft of the 1940s, the Shooting Star, stationed at Oscoda Air Base. Did you see those World War II P-51s? The wounded veterans had a great weekend in the Tawases. These Tawas City residents held a street square dance during the 1954 centennial. Art Sedgman's accordion band marched in the Tawas City Centennial Parade in 1954. A number of horse-drawn buggies and wagons featured the 1954 Centennial Parade. After 5 days of rain, sunshine finally greeted Tawas City's Centennial Parade. This is American Legion Drum and Bugle Corps of East Tawas. And here's Tawas City's birthday cake. Here comes a replica steam locomotive built by Walt Champion. That's Orville Red McDonald as Buffalo Bill Cody. Ed Lexie Wright said it was a long haul with that antique hose cart. There's Chief Blue Cloud with his grandson. The D&M Railway ran this special passenger train during the 1957 Iosco County Centennial. Charlie and Frank Trudell are shown repairing nets during their last season of fishing. The Jesse C. Hodder American Legion Post carried their colors during the 1947 Memorial Day Parade. Elmer Slayman, Tawas City grocer, held a contest for customers seeing who could correctly guess the weight of this large cheese. The Tawas City Business Association were host to Mayor's Exchange Day at the United States Gypsum Quarry in 1957. The Businessmen's Association held 2 different cleanups in the Tawas River. Art Leitz and James Dillon Wright held charge of the volunteers. The Tawas City Park was once the end of the Michigan Shore-to-Shore Riding Trail. The Herald featured many retirees of public and industrial service, including conductor Arnold Kurbitz of the D&M. The Tawas River mouth was the scene of construction of the new Captain Mac fishing party boat by Gordon Clute. Mayor John St. James and new police chief George Westcott Wright are shown with a retiring police chief. Matt Pfeiffer, veteran DPW foreman, is shown at the sewer plant. The city constructed a new parking lot across from the county building and Barnes Hotel. Charles Pinkerton of the D&M donated an old caboose for the city park. Ray Risto is trying his luck jigging for jumbo herring. Roxy Roach, longtime businessman, was a master trout fisherman. Roxy Roach, former Major League Baseball player with New York, was honored with a special day at Briggs Stadium, Detroit. A trainload of fans from northeastern Michigan accompanied him on this special train. This young hunter bagged a pair of pheasants. Mr. and Mrs. Arthur Cowan were veteran real estate operators. Nellie Brooks had her real estate office directly across US 23. Roy Bergeron Wright operated the Secretary of State's office in Tawas City. Do you recall the long lines for license plate renewals? State Representative George Prescott cuts a ribbon for a grand opening. Mr. and Mrs. Walter Shoemaker are shown at their enchanted forest, with Greta Shaney working on the shoe. Jim Boomer Center breaks ground for a new addition to the Baptist Church. Town Line Road is being reconstructed. Carl Lipka, Kneeling, and Bob Kendall are decorating graves on Memorial Day. This is a Tawas City High School band in 1951. Here's a new Tawas City Elementary unit. And here is Herman Rowland, a Tawas City boy who became an elementary teacher and later principal. Diplomas are stacked in the foreground for commencement exercises at Tawas Area School. Here is part of the art show display at the Iosco County Building. And this is part of the display in the Tawas City Park. Concrete animals fashioned by Gordon Clute were great favorites of kids in the city park. The concrete castle is being set in the park. The Tawas River was the scene of a canoe race for a number of years. What better way to enjoy a spring afternoon perch fishing in the Tawas River? Mayor John St. James, second from right, is discussing a city project with Ross Rolland and Vern Eckstein left. Here's another project under discussion at the City Council chambers. Here's another project under discussion before the City Council. Here is Mayor Herb Colger being congratulated by his son and daughter-in-law on his re-election. Mayor Dave Westcott Wright and Clarence King are shown here. Governor Romney greets Little League baseball players. That's the Tawas Herald Building, now the office of Attorney James Shotwell. Across US 23 is McKay Chevrolet Sales, managed by Ladd McKay. Tawas City residents had great pride in their city park. The land was purchased through voter authorization in the 1930s. The bandstand, constructed around 1937, was used for boxing matches during the first Birchville Festival. Generations of kids have had great fun on the bathing beach. In 1949, Governor Kim Sigler just could not believe that upstart G. Menon Williams could beat him in an election. This Tawas Herald photo shows the Iosco Canvassing Board checking precinct records in a statewide recount. Soapy became one of Michigan's premier politicians. This 1950 aerial view showing right to left Tawas Industries, the Barkman Warehouse, Ginrich Feed, Alpena Candy Company, the Tawas Herald, the Barnes Hotel, Iosco County Jail and Courthouse. The City Park gazebo is at lower left. This was the Iosco County Courthouse in 1949, still looking prim and proper after 80 years of service. It is 1951, and trees in front of the courthouse are being bulldozed to make way for a new county building. A beautiful fall day in 1952 saw the cornerstone being laid for the new Iosco County building. Henry Clino left, and Theodore Belleville Wright of the Iosco County Board of Supervisors are using the trowels. Jack Watkins, Master of Ceremonies, stands in the center above the supervisors. In 1951, Iosco still had a two-man sheriff's department, Sheriff Ivan O'Farrell Wright and Under-Sheriff Leon Putnam. The other officers are part-timers. Register of Deeds, Albert Book, is shown with the latest in records copying technology of the 1950s. Lenora Haas was county librarian for several years, later the director of Iosco Aranac Regional Library. Lake Street was packed with automobiles in this 1950s view. This 1950 view looks southwest on Lake Street, with Lansky Standard Station, Bigelow Barbershop, the Office of Justice of the Peace H.E. Friedman, the Silver Valley Cafe, Arnold Bronson Dodge Sales, Hatton Barbershop, Kaiser's Drugstore, and John Monarch's Menswear. The next three photos are by Elmer Slavin, the first showing the Tawas City Election Board in 1953. Here, two old-timers are shown on the Matthew Street footbridge. Wesley Groff at left, once a lumberjack, and Bill Hatton, retired barber. Tawas City observed its centennial in 1954, and Elmer's final photo shows the birthday cake and replica steam locomotive in front of the City Hall. Fuel gas company west of Dead Creek had a problem around 1957 when it accidentally lost its entire propane supply. City police warned neighbors not to smoke. Tawas Industries was a major employer in the area from the end of World War II into the 21st century. Employees are lined up in front of the new plant in 1950. Two of the originators of Tawas Industries, Nathan Barkman and Elmer Worth. Wallace Brothers, one of the last big circuses to visit Tawas City in 1951, located on the Meadow Road Airport. And this elephant herd paraded through town to the circus grounds. This is an aerial view of Tawas City School, snapped in the early 1930s. The Tawas City School District and student body were very proud of this new auditorium constructed in 1940. Superintendent C.J. Creaser, A.E. Giddings, and County School Commissioner Russell Rowland are reviewing petitions circulated for the consolidation of Tawas area schools in 1953. The consolidation vote passed overwhelmingly. This is a new Tawas area school opened to students in February 1957. This parade of shanties opened Birchville in the winter of 1949-50. The Barnes Hotel was destroyed by fire in 1957, but owner Tony DeFilippi was back in business shortly. Tawas Chamber of Commerce constructed a new log office building following combining of two chambers in 1947. Perch were plentiful in the 1940s and attracted these fishermen on the Dead Creek Bridge. Smelt fishing was a phenomenon here starting in the 1930s and extending through the 1960s. This gigantic catch of smelt off Fred Litke's dock on the Tawas River was purposely arranged for a Life magazine photographer. Tawas City corrected part of its problem with Dead Creek by cutting a new channel along the unopened 6th Street. Several loops in the old channel, including one at the Tawas City School, were blocked off and filled, eliminating much of the ice hazard during spring high water. This was the beautiful glen on Dead Creek, which city fathers turned into a city dump in the 1930s. The years of 1952-53 were busy for the DPW, with sewer and water service extended to the rapidly building area west of the Tawas River Bridge. Another huge and lasting enterprise, following several years of raising funds, was groundbreaking in 1951 for the new Tawas Hospital. Tawas Hospital opened its doors in early June 1953, a few days ahead of schedule, to care for a number of Iosco residents injured in a tornado. It is a nice fall day in 1953, and workmen are patching the roof on the old Bay Theater, now converted into the temporary Immaculate Heart of Mary Catholic Church. A beautiful new IHM church was constructed, but it since felt the wrecker's ball. Gordon Clute, master metalsmith, constructed this all-steel cruiser in his boat works on the Tawas River. Here's a new Edsel on display at Ottawa Equipment Company. That was Bill Mallon at Wright. Chester Bush, a World War II pilot of a B-24 bomber, opened his Bob Bush Tool and Die Shop in Tawas City in 1953. Bob Boland inspects a new stamping press. Paul Chevis established Tawas Plating in 1954. The firm is still a major employer in the community. George Miles, district director for the 1960 census, presents results to Glenn Long, chairman of the Iosco County Board of Supervisors, Tawas City Mayor George Tuttle, and East Tawas Mayor Elmer Worth. Tawas City native Stephen Nesbitt left was chairman of the 1960 State Constitutional Convention, and Herman Denke, retired judge, represented this district in the proceedings. These Republicans are about to board a D&M special to Bay City for the welcome of Richard Nixon, presidential candidate. Dick lost to JFK. The money felt funny, said gas station attendant Jim Sheehan after waiting on a customer. State Police Detective Leroy McClure pronounced the bill counterfeit, and the FBI soon rounded up the perpetrator at Alpena, shown here at the Iosco jail. After circulating fake $20 bills in northeastern Michigan, he still had more than 100,000 grand of the worthless paper in his car. He was let off by a federal agent to stand trial and spend a few years in prison. Those accepting the bills stood the loss, by law, but Sergeant Frank Rhodey, who received 2 counterfeit bills in his Christmas Club money at People's State Bank, demanded an exchange and received it. The Herald photographer recorded the scene. The 1960s saw the DNR dumping thousands of coho salmon in the Tawas River. It was a big day for the Tawases when Michigan Con provided natural gas service. Here is the new pedestrian path along Tawas Bay. The Detroit and Mackinac Railway continued to be a major local employer in the 1960s, and this shop crew proudly shows off a diesel-electric locomotive they completely rebuilt in the Tawas shops. These D&M RS2 locomotives are crossing the Dead Creek Bridge. Lake States Railroad now operates along the Huron-Shaw route. Here is the new look of the Tawas River mouth in November 2008.
If the leader doesn't say 720 in the book,
These condos were constructed along the west side of the river.
gets you right in the groove. To keep in step, you really gotta be hip, just be like a kangaroo.
Now we're headed south on US 23, and here's Ed Frail's Market.
Everybody's jumping to 720 in the book.
The new Days Inn on South US 23. The new regional water supply. Here's the Tawas City Post Office. The Colger building overlooks the new City Hall under construction. The new City Hall is scheduled for completion in the spring of 2009. Here are the two dentist offices on the side of the old City Hall, with Ken Miles' office building at right. Now we're looking at the town square along Tawas Bay. Here is the old Maller building, now owned by Brent Babcock, Tawas Lanes, the barber shop, and Ken Cook's office. The next stop is the Iosco Abstract Office, probably the oldest business in Iosco County. The Tawas City Park has been expanded and greatly enjoyed by residents and visitors. Here is the Iosco County Building and Jail overlooking Tawas Bay. This is the County Annex Building just to the east. The Tawas City branch of Huron Community Bank. Attorney James Shotwell now occupies the old Tawas Herald building, and the Liberty building is at right. Now we're looking at stores in Brugger's Plaza. Neiman's Market is a great addition to Tawas City. And here is Tawas Hardware. Now we're looking at Northland Credit Union. And here is the ever-expanding Tawas St. Joseph Hospital, with its many additions and surrounding specialty buildings. Across US 23 on the bay is Minnie the Moocher and Tawas Area Chamber of Commerce. Now we're looking at the Walmart complex, constructed on the site of the former D&M General Offices, engine house, shop buildings, and rail yard. We just turned down North Street to the Tawas City Library. Here is the new Tawas City Department of Public Works complex on Meadow Road. Across the road is WIOS and WKJC. And here is the new Dean Arbor Ford Mercury sales on 5th Avenue at M55. And here is the beautiful new Emmanuel Lutheran Church and School. Adjacent to the church is a Tender Care Nursing Home, and to the north is a Lakeview Manor Nursing Home. Located at the end of First Street is the new look of Iosco Medical Care Facility. Here is the new Tawas United Methodist Church on 5th Avenue and M55. This is a Bresh and Kolb's funeral home on Whittemore Street. The funeral home originated in the mid-1930s by E.D. Ted Jocks, first in the DeCare building on Lake Street and then to this location. This is the Tawas City Fire Station on Matthew Street with an addition under construction. This is a Tawas City elementary unit constructed on the site of the old Tawas City School. And on Plank Road is the new Clara Boland Middle School. Here is a new classroom meeting area attached to Zion Lutheran Church. This is a bird's eye view of the 500 block, which has been rejuvenated during 2008-2009, a dream of the city for nearly 40 years. We're looking out over Tawas Bay from the City Hall Tower. Here is a new city parking lot west of the City Hall. This historic site was the location of the Whittemore Mill, first steam sawmill north of Lower Saginaw. This site has been designated for a Veterans Memorial. And there is a new fire station. Now we've entered the new City Hall, and this is a beautiful council chamber and office area. This is a 2009 election board on November 3rd. Following the dedication, Schaff Construction began work on the latest city project of installing a storm sewer on Matthew Street from 5th Avenue to Dead Creek Bridge on 6th Avenue. Completed, the project will include curb and gutter, new sidewalks, and blacktop. And we're taking a look at the beautiful Liberty Building to end the program.